Welcome to this podcast, Holistic Creators, where we share our unique and universal stories about shaping the future for the 4 Ps: people, planet, purpose, and profit. My name is Swanette. I'm a mental coach and your host of this show. My intention for this show is to inspire you on your path to a holistic future. So welcome. Welcome to my podcast, Holistic Creators. My name is Swanette and I'm your host. Today, my guest is Sheyenne Kreamer. She is a co-founder of the We Care Partnership Network and a community and economic development specialist. Welcome to my show.
Thank you so much, Swanette. It's an honor to be here with you.
Yeah, so this morning, I really felt this is a synchronicity for me because when I shared on Facebook a certain quote, and then I realized, wow, today my guest will speak about this topic. This is amazing. So yeah, to give you a little bit of an idea, this morning I had this quote about that people try to destroy the old world, but not focusing on the new one. And so we are living still in this pandemic, and we see a lot of people being on the street, demonstrating against the vaccination and against a lot of things that are not good in this world right now. And yeah, what I see as well is that we need to create also the attractive new world. So I'm happy to speak about this with you today. And yeah, let us know a little bit about how you came into this topic. What is your story that you are now speaking about this?
Wow. Well, and I've been through so many reinventions. I'm never quite sure where to start with some of those, but I guess in terms of the idea of becoming really aware of the need to focus on creating new systems, I really think it started with my husband about 10 years ago, because my husband and I, we went through a very challenging time where we ended up, because of some health issues that he had, we ended up with losing a whole lot. I mean, we went through foreclosure, we had a vehicle repossessed, we had all these things happen. And we ended up coming face to face with some of the systems that, from our experience, they kind of hold people down in what we call the poverty trap. You know, once you get caught up in some of these systems, it is hard to climb out. It wants to keep you there. And that was the first thing that kind of launched us into these new directions. And then a couple of years after that, and it made no sense. I mean, we had nothing at this moment in time, but my husband was inspired one day. He's every bit as inspired in terms of a lot of things we do as I am. He was inspired that he needed to run for governor of North Carolina. And I was like, oh my God, are you kidding? And he was like, no, I have to do this, but I'm going to do it as an independent candidate, because we had already been out here doing some activities where, from our perspective, you know, when you look at this two-party system, there's some good that you can find in both sides of the fence. And so what we were doing was we were putting those together and saying, when you take the good from here and the good from here and you put them together, you can actually create solutions instead of putting Band-Aids on problems. And, you know, that was his whole platform. But we were totally shocked to find out how much corruption was in the system 10 years ago. It was horrifying, because everything in the system was there to silence him. You know, he was not allowed to be in the gubernatorial debates, even though he was an official candidate according to the State Board of Elections. If he had been on one side or the other, he only would have had to have 5,000 signatures to be on a voter's ballot. But because he was not in the two-party system, they wanted him to have 100,000 signatures. So those were the things that, you know, we saw and said, oh my gosh, so somebody with new ideas and real solutions can't even be heard. It's ridiculous. And so that's when we became really aware, from those two scenarios that we went through, that it's like, okay, obviously there's a lot of broken systems we're living in. They're just flat out broken. And I think it was around that time when somebody introduced us to that Buckminster Fuller quote. And it says, you can't create change by fighting the existing reality. Instead, to create that change, you need to create new systems that make the old ones obsolete. And I think this is one of the things that too many people just don't understand in terms of how energy flows and moves. If you're constantly fighting against the system, you're just giving it more power. You're feeding it. It's like, no. And, somebody once asked me to create a protest march in Washington, D.C. And I'm like, why would I do that? I said, that sounds like a waste of energy. Basically, you're going out and you're bowing to these people that you perceive to have more power than we do and saying, please fix this. And one of my husband's favorite quotes is, he's like, stop looking for things outside of you to fix what's wrong in our society, because we are the miracles we're looking for. We're the hands and feet on this planet who are here to create the change. And if it's not done by us, it's not going to happen, because there's too many people who are lining their pockets by keeping things the way they are. They like it.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree on what you are saying. So especially right now, what I feel is that it comes to the surface, like all this corruption and like this networks of old guys, so to say. It becomes obvious what is happening for so many years, hundreds of years. We have been in this kind of system, and now it gets really tight and people feel it and think, okay, now we need to do something. And like the first reaction is, okay, we need to protest, we need to fight the system to stop this, but not having really an idea what they really want to create instead. It is clear that this needs to stop, but but bringing in the power, and you see millions of people on the street right now, like protesting against this. But on the other hand, what is it that they really would like to create? What is their vision of a community, of our society, of how our environment should look like, and all this kind of stuff? You said a lot of systems are in destruction and in trouble right now. So what do you think about this? Yeah.
Exactly. And so those experiences is what kind of shaped our world and caused us to start saying, okay, so if we were going to try to create an alternative system, what would that look like? And really, that's what we've been doing for the last 10 years. We actually have two companies. One we call an economic development system, which is really focused on the idea that if you believe in anything in your spiritual teachings, if you believe we were truly made in the image and likeness of a creator, then you should understand we were born to create. And we do it all the time, even though a lot of what we create ends up being negative creations. It's like we get caught in these negative thought patterns and then wonder why we see all this stuff manifesting around us that's not what we want, right? But why are more of us not intentionally creating what it is we desire to see? And a lot of that has to do, again, with our broken systems. Because even the education system in this country is designed to take our spiritual nature out of everything. We're not even, in many schools, there's not even art and music really going on there anymore, which is of the spirit. It is of, what we're born to be able to create. And to me, entrepreneurship is one of the most amazing forms of creation that anybody can engage in. And yet, again, you don't find a lot of it in our school systems, because the school systems are designed to pump out good employees. It's that simple. So, that's where we started to create a business around the idea of helping more people at all levels of society to be able to learn some basic entrepreneurial skills. So we've taught entrepreneurship in homeless shelters. We've taught it in prisons. We've taught young people who were in danger of being recruited by gangs. I mean, these are folks who typically have some really brilliant business minds, but they've not been given the support structure to go forward and figure out how to create legally and how to create in a way that can become self-sustaining. So, that's one side of our fence. The other company, the We Care Partnerships Network, that's where we're pulling together teams of small business owners to be able to lead the change in our communities. So we're putting together 4 different teams that are, designed to become cross-functional teams in a community. So we're pulling together health and wellness professionals. We're pulling together what we're calling prosperity professionals, people who can teach anything from financial literacy to how to pay down a mortgage faster, to how to actually start your own business. We have a peace and justice team, which will include people who get involved in saying, okay, so if we just looked at our neighborhood as a self-governing entity, what would that look like? How would we start to think differently in terms of how we would govern ourselves and how we could come together as a neighborhood and figure out how to solve some problems? And then the 4th team is the basic needs team. And so in that one, I actually have a network building across the country of about 15 different people right now who all are holding the same vision. And we don't know exactly where the key is to turn this yet, but we know it's coming because there's more and more and more people being inspired with the same vision. And the vision is to be able to start to create communities where you can house people who've suddenly found themselves homeless. You can have a vocational training center to be able to teach people about all the different trades opportunities out here, because our high schools aren't even highlighting that anymore. The entrepreneurial training, having organic farming, having a wellness center that's all about body, mind, and spirit wellness. Right? All of these things in a central place in a community where you can now give people the support structure to be able to start to build the things that are in their spirit that they came here to build.
Wow, this is so amazing. And of course, on the one hand, I see people that are somehow stuck because of the mindset as well, how they were educated and what they learned not only in school, but also like the role model they had from their parents or the other important people around them, like being kind of, I would say, even a slave of the system. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
This is like, no, you need to work and then you have to watch TV and in between eat some junk food and okay, I know that it is. But, yeah, so like behave like that and everything is fine. Yeah.
Yes.
As soon as you open your mind and create visions and speak out a different opinion, this is suppressed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's one of the reasons why my husband and I we live in a motorhome. So our house is on wheels. We don't have a permanent address other than a mailbox in Florida. And, because we travel to different areas looking for people who are ready for these new ideas. So, right now I still teach some classes back in Raleigh, North Carolina. Tomorrow I'm meeting with a college here in the Tampa area in Florida who's interested in what I teach. The class is called Find Your Song and Sing It, Finding or Creating Work You Love. And so, we look for communities that are interested in that as kind of a beginning point to start to show people more ways that they could start their own business. One of the things people don't understand at this point in time is there are so many ways you can start a business with zero money. And, it's crazy. The technology allows us to do this. And yet nobody's telling anybody this. So, that's why when even in a homeless shelter, when we're talking to a bunch of gals who have found themselves landed in a shelter, when you can tell them, look, there are ways you can start money with zero or start a business with zero, they're like, they don't believe it because nobody's ever told them that. So, that's part of our mission. That's part of our passion, is to just try to shine the light on more of these things so that people understand what is possible. A lot of our young people, they're laughing at our idea of retirement. I mean, I'm 60 years old and, I don't see me retiring anytime soon. But there's 20 and 30 years old out here who've already figured out how to harness the internet. They're making ridiculous amounts of money and they're already considering themselves retired. So, this idea that retirement has to happen at 62 or 65 or 70 is like, they're just laughing at us. It's not necessary. We can build our own residual income streams and do what we want to do, which I hope for more and more people will be to get off the bleachers and onto the playing field. Because one of the things I love to talk about is the concept of a super puzzle. So to me, we all came onto this planet with a piece of the super puzzle. The super puzzle represents health, wealth, and peace for all of us. And if we're not seeing health, wealth, and peace on the planet, that's a pretty good indicator that far too few of us are creating our piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, so this is so true. And I also see that a lot of people, they don't feel fulfilled in their daily job. They're doing this just for the paycheck. And you said that this is something also happened in your own family. Like
yes.
being like having an idea what to create in this world, and then of course there are some limitations because you were not allowed at that time, or you didn't have the chance to go to the university or whatever, and then you are stuck in a job that is not really something you want to do every day, but you're doing it because of the money. And then many years later, you are old and perhaps not healthy anymore. And then you get a little bit of the money you spent into the system to have the rest of your life sitting in front of the TV. So,
yes.
And we call this retirement. Some people start gardening, but it is really like, what have you done all the years? You lost your life.
Yes. Yes. And that is so true. And, my story with that goes way back into, even high school. I mean, I was valedictorian in my high school class, but I did not feel like it was time for me to go to college because I didn't know what I wanted to do. And my mother was extremely upset that I was not headed off to college, but at the same time, she wanted to be an artist and her parents wouldn't allow her. She wanted to be a state police officer. And at that time, society wouldn't allow her to do that. And so here was my mom being the perfect example of somebody who ended up sacrificing what was in their heart and soul because society and parents were telling them they couldn't do what they wanted to do. And yet, well-meaning parents are trying to push their kids into a college system right now. And this is a fact, and I have heard it from several colleges in different places across the country. Only 40% of our students who start out as college freshmen are actually graduating. That is an atrocious number. That means that 60% of the people who walk into a college either are wasting their parents' money or are going to get saddled with student debt that they don't know how to get rid of because the systems make them hold on to it and it follows them all their lives. It's like what you said earlier. It becomes part of a slave system, and it's like, oh my God, that's just not right. And when I was in high school, my valedictory speech was on following your heart, because I even had friends in high school who had committed suicide before they even got to graduation. And I have friends that I graduated with who are not on the planet today because they knew what they wanted to do, but well-meaning parents guided them in a different direction that did not follow their heart. They had depression symptoms all their life, and they finally committed suicide.
Wow.
And, you know, that to me, and we know, we've heard that during the pandemic, suicide rates have gone much higher. Depression rates have gone much higher. And I truly believe that for a lot of people, it's an illness of the spirit, because our spirit, the essence of our spirit is creation. The essence of our spirit is freedom. And when all of this freedom is taken away and you know, everything in our society is saying, don't create, just do what everybody else is doing. And, you know, watch the Super Bowl and you know, all of this kind of stuff, you know, we lose sight of who we were designed to be. And to me, that is the saddest piece of what's going on all over the planet right now. People are waking up, but they don't even understand what it is they're feeling and what they need to do with it.
Yeah, I totally hear you. And what I see is that, yeah, when you have young children, they are so creative, they are playful, they are connected to themselves. And then they go into this education and whatever system like this, forming this human being, and they end up being depressed, even, you know, committing suicide. But these are the symptoms that people are not connected anymore to the heart, not connected to the spirit. They don't
Yes.
really, they are not connected at all with the world, with the all-known consciousness and something like that. So for me, it's interesting to understand how can people that are somehow in their process deconnected from themselves come back to feel themselves, understand what is really in their heart, what they want to bring out, and be able to also connect with their spirit.
Mm-hmm. And that's a challenge. You know, for a lot of people, it takes a major wake-up call. And I have to admit, I've been through a few of them. Because even, you know, way back, I even though I did not follow the traditional path of going direct to college, I went into a manufacturing apprenticeship program with a big company and became a tool maker, which was awesome because I got to see so many different kinds of career paths that were in this corporation. But I got very tied into the corporation. Some people talk about the golden handcuffs, right? It's like, oh, I got good benefits. I got good pay. I need to be here. Until I actually went through a situation where some people are telling me I had a near-death experience. I just call it an out-of-body experience where, you know, I was on a cruise ship. I had a miscarriage. I was dumped off from the cruise ship in Puerto Rico. I was scared silly because everybody was speaking Spanish to me and I didn't even know what was happening. And, you know, I went into surgery for, you know, just a D&C as they called it. And while I was under anesthesia, I know I left. I left where I was and I went back home to Vermont because I was just so scared that I wasn't going to get back home. And I could see and I could hear everything going on around me. I was sitting in my office back there. And I remember all of a sudden just having this weird idea that it was like, oh, I need to get back to where my body is before somebody thinks I'm dead. And I just felt myself just whoosh, and I dropped back into my body with this thud. And all of a sudden I could hear people around me and I'm like, oh, okay. And that, I really had no religious background. I really didn't have much in the way of spiritual knowledge at that time. And so that sent me, that whole experience, I had no idea what had happened. That whole experience just sent me into researching and going, okay, so what did I just experience? What was that? How did that happen? And that was the beginning of me heading down this more spiritual path and understanding that the world is much more than what we're told and much more than what we typically see and hear and feel. So, that was one of my wake up calls. But then, a few years later, I went through another one. And, the universe will hit you with a 2x4 if you're not listening. And that's what happened to me several times, because I ended up getting laid off from that big corporation, not once, but twice in less than a year. And at that point in time, it was very interesting because I was very aware that I was kind of at a crossroads, and I had to figure out what my next steps were, because I was interviewing for jobs after that second layoff, and I just wasn't getting job offers. And I kept thinking, okay, there's something I'm missing. What is it? And one night I had this dream, and it was so weird because it was like this big warehouse, and there was all these cubicles in the warehouse. And I'm going from cubicle to cubicle in the dream, and I'm looking, each cubicle had a computer sitting in it. And so I'm looking at the computers, and I'm seeing there's different computer games on every computer. And some of them were fairly easy to win. Some of them were extremely difficult. And I woke up from that dream, and I just burst out laughing. I'm like, oh my gosh, the universe is trying to tell me that I get to choose what game I play next, and I get to choose how difficult it is. So little did I know that I was choosing to go down a much more challenging path, because up until that point, I never had done anything in sales and marketing other than sold Girl Scout cookies. That was it. And yet one night, shortly after that dream, I was making dinner, I was peeling potatoes, and all of a sudden it was like, poof, it hit my brain. And I heard this voice say, be a consultant. And I was like, what? Who said that? And after that, the next words, were, it told me a company that I should call. And I thought that was really interesting, because the company that I needed to call was one that I had already interviewed with, but I did not get the job. And so I went back to that hiring manager and I said, look, I know that you've decided that I'm not the right fit for your permanent position, but what if there was something I could come in and do in the short term as a consultant? I said, I would love to do that. And he was like, let me see if I can get some money from my general manager. So just the fact that he liked my idea and he was trying to go to bat for me, I was like, okay, maybe this is something I can do. And unfortunately, he wasn't able to get the money for me then, but believe it or not, a year later he did. But in the short term, I just started going through this list of people, because this was a plant closing. We all had the company shutting down. 90 people had all taken jobs in the area. I was one of the last ones who hadn't received one. And I just went through the list and started calling people and said, I got this crazy idea. I want to be a consultant, and I want to be able to lead and facilitate problem-solving teams. That's what I learned how to do in corporate. I love to do it. I love to empower people to solve their own problems. And one of the girls that I talked to that was in the list was like, oh my God, our HR director needs you like yesterday. And she hooked me up with him to talk to. And 3 weeks later, I had a 6-month consulting assignment. So, that's the thing, is that when you just allow yourself and just tell the universe, hey, I'm open, I'm trying to get aligned here. There's something that needs to connect between my head and my heart. I'm trying to figure out what that alignment looks like. It will send you signs and signals. But the kicker is, how often when we get a message about something that we should look at, How often do we shut it down and say no? We do that a lot. I did over and over again. Because one of the other places where another shift happened was my consulting all of a sudden came to a halt. And this is a key, and people need to hear this. If you have been in a situation where you were making money, and all of a sudden you hitting the wall, I call it flat forehead syndrome. You beat your head on the brick wall and it doesn't feel very good. If that happens, a lot of times that's a clue. It says, you got to adjust. You got to go somewhere else. And there was this one woman who showed up in my space over and over again for 6 months. And she kept saying, but Sheyenne, you would make such a great recruiter. And I'm like, recruiter? That's not what I wanted to be when I grew up. Why would I do that? And I kept telling her, no, 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 until 6 months later, when all of a sudden my cash flow had completely dried up. And she happened to call me one morning and she was like, Sheyenne, I had to get rid of my only recruiter. And I really could use your help to just come in temporarily while I look for a new recruiter. And I'm like, all right, just temporary. I need the cash flow. Let's do it. I ended up being there 6 years. And she ended up being the most wonderful mentor I ever had, because she taught me the business from the ground up in staffing and recruiting. And, she taught me more about sales. She taught me more about marketing. She taught me about, compliance issues from a human resource perspective. She taught me about, accounting in the back office and all of that. So the one person that for 6 months I kept slamming the door and saying, go away, ended up being one of the most important people in my life in terms of just being this incredible mentor. So how often, when the universe is trying to offer you something of great value, how often do we run?
Yeah, so I completely can agree what you just have told us. For me as well, I had a near-death experience when I was 8 years old, and from then on being curious about life, but even being very intuitive. I'm the one that again and again can run against the wall, and like people showing up and offering something and I'm not getting it. And so, yes, I'm doing this as well.
Flat forehead syndrome.
Absolutely. So, but this is really understanding on the one hand, even though for this moment, this offer is not clear. Why should I go in this direction? Because I thought the way is, going there. This is another piece of the puzzle. And for me, being in different areas, like being in medicine, being an engineer in environmental technology, being a business coach and being an energy healer, and all this kind of stuff, and also being very spiritual. From the outside, it looks like, what is she doing there and there? And now she's in business and she's in environment and medicine, health, blah, blah, wellness. We don't know what she's doing. But bringing this all together, this is all about life. Yeah, it is different areas about life. And now it becomes a picture. Yeah. And as you said, now, why should I go into recruiting? Why should I go into this area, learning this and this? Because now, after a time, you can see, okay, these are all the puzzle pieces that I need to bring together to have the whole picture and go out with whatever your vision is and create this. Without having experiences, you couldn't, yeah?
That's it. That's it. And it's so funny because, that's one of the challenges that for some of us who have really been working on getting this head and heart connection going and trying to get in alignment with whatever our spirit's calling us to, there's a fair number of us who actually, I believe, came here to be what I call a systems integrator. So we are given all these different puzzle pieces to integrate so we can see a big picture. And so people like you and me, who people are going, you got to have a focus. You can't do this and this and this and this. I just say, excuse me, I do. My focus is on building a new system. And that system is composed of many parts. So I've had to kick a bunch of business coaches to the curb because they wanted me to just focus on some one piece. And I'm like, no, it's a system. If you can't help me work the system, I don't need you in my space. And that's just been the truth of it. So just understanding as we go along that there are a lot of us being called to be that system builder. And so what I've ended up finding out, because again, I had no idea back when I was called to be a recruiter, was that now I'm recruiting people to teams who are all part of a small business situation where I am able to now, oh no, somebody's knocking at the door. It's like, uh-oh, I've got a challenge here in my space. But to be able to recruit people to the teams so they can become the solutions people, the problem solvers. That's what it's all about in terms of why I had to become a recruiter. So anyway, yes, recruiting has now become a big part of my business, recruiting people to become part of my problem solving teams.
Yeah, I think what is also important is that if you have been in different areas of the system, like understanding about health, understanding about wealth and freedom, and you need to understand on the one hand, what is the status quo, what is not working, understanding also the language they are using. And then, yeah, I think this is important. And then, of course, seeing what have been, for example, solutions in the past that worked well, that are kind of deleted out of our memories, but we can reuse. Like at the moment here, I'm together with a group of women and we are collecting medical herbs and growing medical herbs to use them for the healing. So now I'm in a subtropical island. We have a lot of plants here, but no, we don't know this, but the old ladies do know that. So understanding what you can do with these kind of herbs, for what kind of disease they are good, and how to, where to find them, how to collect them, and like if you need to dry them or whatever you have to do with them, using as tea inside or outside. So this is knowledge that is very important if you don't want to rely on the pharmaceutical industry.
That's right.
And like this is really old knowledge, and I think we are the last generation that has access to this, because the old ladies will die sooner or later. And so understanding what has been old knowledge we can bring into the present time and reuse, perhaps to also up-level it. And what is like information that we can, from my point of view, download. Because I'm connected to the morphic field and I'm getting kind of insights. I'm clairvoyant and precognitive. I get also instant knowledge. And I think if we, like spiritual beings, open ourselves up and kind of trying to download this information to create this better future, this is also important. Like, so I think this is, for people who are system creators, this is all in.
Yes, absolutely. You are right on. And I always love when people talk about that they get these downloads of information, because I get a lot of those. And I think we all are designed to be able to do that. But how many of us actually seek it, because your meditation and just different spiritual practices of different kinds can open you up to be able to receive more of that information. I mean, I'll never forget the time that the folks were, I had the women who were trying to get me to do some kind of a protest march in Washington, D.C. And I'm telling them, I'm like, that's useless. We're not going to go and beg other people to change things when we're the ones who have to create the change. And I remember after telling them that I wasn't going to do that, I was out walking and I get this download of information. And I'm like, what? And that's when, one of our initiatives, we call it Women Leading from the Heart, was born. And the vision that I got was that I needed to round up women who I already knew. I was in the Raleigh area of North Carolina. I needed to round up women I already knew who were already out here creating their own solutions. And a lot of them were doing it without a lot of financial resources. Most of them didn't even have a nonprofit organization, but a lot of them were doing nonprofit type work. But they were all focused on actually being a solution. And so I rounded up this group of women. There was 12 of us. We all jumped in a van and went up to Washington, D.C. together. And we stood at the Jefferson Memorial for a whole day and just talked to all the people that were walking on the National Mall. And just, we were presenting the different kinds of solutions that we were creating. And, so many people would stop and go, wow, you're doing that? I never heard of anybody doing that before. And that's what we have as a capability. So, that's a big part of what I'm working with We Care Partnerships right now, is we want to grow that movement of, women leading from the heart, because that's what we got to have. Women leading from the heart will be the solution providers that we need to create the health, wealth, and peace that we're looking for on the planet right now.
Yeah, can you go in more details about that? And I would like to understand why only women. I have a concept about that, but I would like to hear yours.
Well, and here's the thing, because I tend to be fairly brain balanced between, masculine, feminine energy and things of this nature. And my husband is my biggest supporter, and he absolutely is. In fact, we've tried to create, get a load of this, we've tried to create another initiative that we called Men on a Mission United. I've only got 3 guys that are part of that right now, just 3. So I think guys who are a little bit more balanced between the masculine and feminine, they are going to come into this. But, I truly believe there's a strong feminine energy that's coming into the planet at this moment in time. And if you're a guy who can work with that and not feel threatened by that, don't think it's somehow here to destroy your masculinity, but allow you to be more balanced, then I think the guys can get involved in it too. But, women are the ones who have the much more natural access to those feminine energies. We're much more in line with the creative energies. I mean, it's our bodies that are used heavily for the creation process to bring additional life on the planet. So, that's why I think we will see more women stepping up to lead, more women who are in the forefront of this creation process. And, again, I'm here to say, if there's guys who are willing to state that they've got a mission to create more health, wealth, and peace on the planet, I have an initiative for you. Get involved with Men on a Mission United, and let's work together out here to go forward.
Yeah. So I definitely have the same feeling about the feminine energy as well. And so this is why my networks are mostly women as well. There are some men in, but they are balanced. So this is okay.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit more about how this could look like when what you're creating with this new system. You already gave us a kind of a draft idea, but go a little bit deeper to understand what you're doing.
Oh my goodness. It really comes down to, and I just realized this recently, again, it's funny how the universe kind of stepped me through all of these different experiences to, like you say, be able to build the puzzle and put all these pieces together. And my mom actually, I think, was a lot of my inspiration. And I didn't realize this for a long time either, because she used to work for state government. she worked in the prison system, and she worked in the mental health system, and she worked in all these different things, the welfare system. And she would come home and tell me how she didn't think that the system was really helping people in the way that they needed to be helped. So here I've come through quite a number of years now with this whole idea of being able to create what corporate always called self-directed work teams. That's really the concept that I learned in corporate America that I'm now taking into our communities. And it's a powerful concept. Many people are familiar with Napoleon Hill and Think and Grow Rich and the concept of a mastermind. Well, that's all we're really doing is we're taking that concept of a mastermind and inserting it into a community and saying, all right, so let's make the small business community kind of the stakeholders that, you know, really can kind of lead the charge and help with this problem solving team concept. But then we want to bring in people who are closest to the problems, because they're the ones who understand more about the root cause of the problems. And if we ever want to get beyond band-aiding problems, we've got to include people who are closest to the problems that can tell us, okay, if we really want to solve this, here's the root cause, let's address this. So that's what we're really doing out here. As an example, last summer, we had the opportunity to spend several months in North Georgia and Western North Carolina with a couple who used to own a chain of Montessori schools in the Atlanta area. So they're retired now, but they're still very spiritual. They're very much wanting to be part of changing what's going on out here. And so they hosted us in our RV and said, you know what, we've got this group of 40 people that's coming together, and they want to be involved in creating change out here. And we're not quite sure how to get them started. Can you guys help? So me and my husband went, and we took them through some different exercises and got this group of 40 people broken up into about 5 different groups. And it was all based on what they were passionate about. So we had one group that wanted to work on issues related to education. We had another group that wanted to work on health and wellness. We had another one that was all about spirituality. So we had these different passions and people coming together saying, you know, we want to be involved in doing something with these things. And those 5 teams are still functioning out there because this couple continues to have them meet. Some of them are meeting weekly. The couple gets together with them on a monthly basis. And, you know, they're putting together their ideas on what can they do to create change. As an example, back in North Carolina right now, I have a team that's working on creating a pre-apprenticeship program to fill an education gap, because there's so many young people who are not even being exposed to the trades anymore. It's not in the high schools. Nobody's showing up at the career fairs to even encourage young people to explore the trades. We have way too many young people who are just staring at screens all day, and they don't even know how to communicate with people. They don't know how to be human. And so we're putting together this pre-apprenticeship program that's going to teach them entrepreneurial skills, communication skills. They're going to actually make money during the program, but they're also going to work with mentors from the trades so that we can get them to a place where they're starting to learn through entrepreneurship and then be ready to enter into an apprenticeship with the tradesperson. So those are just all examples of ways that we can create these teams. And these self-directed work teams can even take it to, again, this idea of self-governing, whether it's within a neighborhood, whether it's in a community. You know, we can get to a place of saying, you know what, we don't have to sit here and listen to all this garbage about all of man's laws. What happened to natural law? What happened to God's law? What happened to those things that we know intuitively are right? And, you know, there's even something that a gentleman I've met in the past, he created something called the prime law. And that prime law, to me, is what should be governing all of our communities, because basically all it says is that nobody has the right to initiate force against you and me. And if somebody does try to force us into something, we have the right to protect ourselves because, that's what the Creator gave us the right to do. We have the right to protect ourselves. So if you take force out of all the systems that we have right now, you have the ability to create heaven on earth. And that's ultimately our vision. Our book is actually called Skip the Politics and Create Heaven on Earth. We wrote that 2 years ago.
Oh, wow, this sounds good. So you have the book handy and can show it?
Actually, I don't have a copy of it with me. I mean, it can be found on a website.
Okay, so I will put definitely the link in the show notes. Okay. So this is really amazing. Is it necessary that you have a certain kind of environment or structure or anything like that to create this new system?
Well, that good old saying, I think Margaret Mead was one of the ones who said, never underestimate the ability of a small group of people to change the world, because that's the only thing that ever has. And, so the idea being that in marketing, they talk about a split run. Okay. Split run means that in marketing, you test out this marketing message, you test out this marketing message to see which one works better. Okay. So what I'm suggesting right now is that, as we're pulling together virtual teams, but as we get virtual teams together on the internet, and then we can start to work on expanding those teams in the locations where those members are. What we're doing is starting to build through those teams of, health and wellness, peace and justice, prosperity and basic needs. We start to build those teams in communities in different places. And now we can go, okay, we have broken system over here. We have people building new systems over here. You get to choose which one you want to deal with. So, and I mean, you can even go as far in a community, there's still ways people can barter, even if you start with, you don't have to have a special currency. I mean, yeah, we're still living in this crazy system, but we can even start to agree that in a community, we can do bartering. There's actually a nonprofit barter organization out there that lets anybody join for free. And you just have a platform now to be able to trade your energy through barter tokens. And that's all that, we're supposed to be doing. There's supposed to be an equal energy exchange between people, right? Whether it happens with actual currency or through barter really doesn't matter.
Yeah, I know the system with having points. Like we had this community where we had kind of points and that we could share and giving hour for hour or again for products. So this worked the same way. You don't need really the currency for that. Absolutely not. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it is like a call now for people that feel to create this new system to come perhaps in contact with you and figure out how they can start this kind of project, how you can help them. Most of the people I'm talking to are perhaps not in the US, but in Europe, how they can come in contact with you and perhaps speak to you, getting ideas, understanding what you're doing even more in detail. And
sure.
Yeah, how can people come in contact with you? How is this possible?
Definitely. Well, I'm very active on LinkedIn, so I always encourage people to look for me there. I'm happy to connect with people, be able to chat with people there. But also, I do have a gift if anybody's interested in it. It's actually a quick start guide for people to just take a look at with some beginning steps on how you can start to create your own team wherever you are. And people can find that. It's at getmyguide.info. So just getmyguide.info. And that will take them to directly to a download where they can download that sheet and start to have at least the beginning steps on some of the things to do to start figuring out how they could start to create their own problem solving team, finding your own tribe in your own community. And I'm always happy to chat with people about that. We do have whole coaching programs to help people learn, all the elements of that. If somebody really wanted to become a leader or a facilitator of a local team, we're more than happy to work with them and help them to do that as well. But getmyguide.info is a good place to start.
Wow, thank you so much for your gift and for sharing all this information. And for my audience, you will find the links down in the show notes. I will put them in there. So thank you so much for being my guest today.
Thank you. It has been an honor and a pleasure.
Yeah, speak to you soon again. Bye-bye.
All right.
Thank you for listening or watching my podcast, Holistic Creators. If you want to know more about how I can help and support you, have a look at my website, spiritualchangemaker.com. You can also join my Facebook group, Spiritual Changemakers Community. Stay tuned for the next episode by subscribing to this channel. And you also can check the previous episodes.